Miami Hurricanes are the best team in the ACC, or is it Florida State? Wait, is Syracuse worse than North Carolina? We got some power rankings.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. He is Kenton Gibbs, former NC State defensive lineman and co-host of Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Donno, host of Locked On Canes, and this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. On this episode, we'll look at a sneaky good Week 3 football schedule. We certainly hope the ACC does better out of conference, including the Backyard Brawl. Let's see if Pitt can take home another win against West Virginia. The ACC turns out might be pioneers with their conference's revenue sharing model. We will explain. But Kenton, we got a batch. This is courtesy of ACC Digital Network, Wes Bryant, ACC Power Rankings. Let me run through these for the audio listeners. He's got Miami at number 1, so you know I'm not arguing. Florida State, Clemson, SMU, Georgia Tech, Louisville, Pitt at number 7, your Wolfpack at number 8, Duke at 9, Virginia 10, Boston College 11, Cal with their exciting quarterback JKS at 12, North Carolina at 13, Syracuse at 14, Wake Forest, who actually didn't look bad last weekend at number 15, Virginia Tech, who looks dreadful at 16, but the Stanford Cardinal in the cellar at number 17. All right, so Kenton, what say you? Do you think Wes Bryant did a really good job, or do you have some complaints?
I do. I wouldn't even say complaints so much as questions. I have a few of these that leave me a little bit confused here, because what has Cal done to end up that far down? You know, they've looked phenomenal in their first 2 games. I got to give Cal their respect. They have looked phenomenal with JKS. I could understand if that's a team that we thought of as like they're supposed to be a superpower in the ACC, and then all of a sudden they come out of the gate struggling. It's been the exact opposite. Granted, it's been against 2 quote-unquote inferior opponents, but even if you just take their game against Oregon State, we thought, they're going to have the defense sorted out. Their head coach is a defensive guy, and you've got Ron Rivera as the GM, and you've got all this turnover on offense. They're good defensively. Offense is where you're going to have the problems. 35 points game 1. 35 points against a team that was Power 4 or Power 5 2-3 years ago. So I sit here and I kind of ask, what more can Cal do to gain some national respect and get away from a team that was beaten like they stole something in game 1 in terms of UNC? So that's probably one of my bigger questions there. And beyond
hold on real quick, though, before you go on. I'll tell you what Cal can do. They can beat Minnesota at home this weekend at 10:30 p.m. It's like a ACC after dark for that one. So, Minnesota are favored by 2.5 in Berkeley for that game. Because like you said it, Cal doesn't have, a big win so far this season.
Yeah.
You've got a pretty good Big Ten team coming to your house. If I can see JKS looking like he's a true freshman, but he hasn't played that way so far, if I can see him do it against the Golden Gophers, then they better skyrocket up that list.
Exactly. I know that he has the chance to do it this week. I want to see it.
Yeah.
I want Cal to put it on tape this week. I'm all for Calgorithm to the moon because, like I said, I was expecting the defense to be ready and the offense to take some time. So far, this team's put up 35 points back-to-back games. So, you can say it's inferior opponents. You can say, they're less than and all that good stuff. Cal was supposed to be the less than coming into this year. They were supposed to be that. So, I give them their props for doing what they've done so far this year. Other than that, I don't see anything on this list that's too egregious. I will say, what a how the mighty have fallen moment for Virginia Tech. I mean,
my God.
16th out of 17, 0-2 on the year. There's not a single second half this year that you haven't got spanked and put to sleep, in essence. I hate that for them.
Yeah, I think it's sad to say it. Virginia Tech at 16 is where they belong because I don't think they're worse than Stanford, but they're obviously bad. I mean, they got embarrassed against Vanderbilt, specifically in the second half. That should never happen in Blacksburg at night. So I think Virginia Tech is where they should be. You know, if I'm really gonna nitpick this thing, I said this to you off air. I mean, I think Syracuse is a little bit better than North Carolina, but, you know, listen, they're only separated by one spot. Wes Bryant probably, you know, thinks that North Carolina has more talent than Cuse. Maybe they do. That's just a nitpicky thing on my part. And then I'm pretty pleased with like the top half of his ranking. I mean, I might, just my personal preference, I might flip Georgia Tech with SMU, put Georgia Tech at 4th, put SMU at 5th. I think Georgia Tech has looked better so far in their first 2 games. And, you know, they're 2-0 and SMU is 1-1. You know, obviously we have our alarm bells with Clemson, but I still think they deserve to be in the top 3. Credit to Florida State, because before the season started, I never would have thought they would look like, you know, a top 2, or some even might say top team in the ACC, but they've looked splendid so far. And, you know, I think Miami is where they should be based on how they performed against Notre Dame, specifically at the line of scrimmage the opening week. So you know, there's a couple spots that I would probably tweak, but I'm pretty cool with it.
I mean, if we were looking at these teams in terms of stock, everybody's cautiously waiting on Clemson, cautiously waiting, saying, I'm not sure if I'm selling yet. I know I'm not buying more. Florida State, everybody would be buying. Everybody would be going out, give me some of that. I need to get returns immediately. Miami, the people who bought early, they would say, I'm seeing good returns on my investment. You know, it's summertime and the living is easy in my stock world, because I took out some on Miami as soon as I found out that bet kid was coming, and it's been all right. That's what I would say in terms of those top 3 teams. But all in all, I wouldn't disagree with most of your assessments here. I mean, Georgia Tech has looked physically dominant in every game that they played so far this year. And granted, small sample size of 2, played against Colorado, all that good stuff. That's fine. But the reality is they've looked dominant in every game that they played this year. So that makes sense to me. Syracuse to UNC, small sample size, I'm fine with them either way you want to cut or slice that. Even if you want to say, hey, you know, what does beating UConn really do for you? About as much as beating Charlotte? Yeah. Okay. And I'm not mad at you. You know, beating you, having to come back to beat UConn means less than winning. I wouldn't even say dominantly, but winning a game. I'll say controlling a game against Charlotte. I'll give them that. I think that's worth more. So I'm okay with that one.
Do you know who I think? I've watched them quite a bit the first 2 games, and I think they might sleep on. They might be a sleeper for some people. Boston College at number 11. You know, they just lost to Michigan State in overtime, but Dylan Lonergan is absolutely slinging that rock, Kenton. I mean, it's, you know, Boston College, maybe not the most balanced team. You know, they gave up like 45 points or whatever it was to Michigan State. So, like, I'm not saying they should be ranked a lot higher than number 11, but I just kind of feel like watching BC's offense these first couple of games, I'm like, I see you, Boston College. I see you, Dylan Lonergan, who might even, you know, if he gets even better and more comfortable in that offense as the season goes on, Boston College is going to be a tough out for the teams that they have BC on their schedule.
Donno, I'm not going to lie to you and say that I have seen a single second of Boston College film this year. I'm not going to lie to you and say that. I've watched a lot of these teams. Boston College ain't one of them. But I will say this. I don't care how good they look. They still got Bill O'Brien, the head coach. I don't care how good Dylan Lonergan looks. Bill O'Brien is still the play caller. I'm all right trusting that team in the bottom half. But I will say this so the AJ Black and company don't jump on me now. Because I know the boys at Boston like to get a little feisty with their khakis and whatnot.
That's right.
I will say this. If this team continues to win and if they can bounce back from that Michigan State loss in a meaningful way, if, like you said, Donno, they can be a more balanced team, they can get some stops here and there, I'd be willing. I'd be willing to reevaluate what I think about this team right now. And again, this opinion is based solely on their head coach. Maybe my gripes with Bill O'Brien, which are well documented, are too big. Maybe they are, Donno. Maybe they are. Prove to me that I'm wrong, Boston College. Show me that you're not the 11th best team in the conference.
I'm just going to leave this here because I want you to watch Lonergan the next couple of weeks because he's putting up these crazy numbers. Like it kind of reminds me a little bit of what Kyle McCord did last year at Syracuse, where like the team wasn't that great, but he was slinging it. Actually, Syracuse, they give him credit. They beat Miami and they ended up with 10 wins, including the bowl game. I don't think BC is going to win that much, but Lonergan so far this year, he's completing 76% of his passes, 60 for 79 for 658 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. He put up, I think, 390 and 4 TDs against Michigan State. So watch that dude, man. There's something, at least at that position, there may be something special going on.
Donno, you've got me sold. You've got me sold. I'm good. Now listen, I'm going to watch some Boston College football this weekend, okay? I will be thoroughly tuned in for who they got on the docket. Stanford. I will thoroughly be tuned in for Boston College, Stanford. And I'm telling you, since they're playing Stanford, I'm expecting him to run it up. I'm expecting Lonergan to look like Jesus out there. And if he doesn't, I will be back. I will be back. No, but in all seriousness, again, I expect them to drub Stanford, and I expect a good game here. But again, as the host of this show, it is my duty to watch all of these teams. And I don't want to comment on anybody I haven't watched, so I will watch some Boston College and kind of get into what I'm seeing from it.
Yeah, well, and you set me straight earlier this week because I didn't watch enough of the Duke game. I just assumed they got manhandled, but then, I realized they actually – and listen, committing 5 turnovers, I'm not saying they played great, but they actually did outgain Illinois, and they just, they lost the turnover margin 5-zip, and that's not a recipe for victory. So we'll explain why the Atlantic Coast Conference may be pioneers in terms of changing the way revenue is shared in the entire sport of college football. We'll take a look at some of these big week 3 matchups coming up as well. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. Guys, you can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard with every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Folks, it's almost the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, this player delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. All right, so for Locked On ACC this week, we're going to go with Syracuse receiver Justice Ross Simmons, who delivered in a big way. So he scored the game-winning touchdown in overtime against UConn, which helped Syracuse survive a potentially pretty significant upset, and there's not a whole lot of guaranteed wins on their schedule this year. So that was huge. When the pressure was on, Justice Ross Simmons came through, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching him week after week, that performance wasn't a fluke. He's on a streak. And just like Justice Ross Simmons delivered for the Orange, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period is through November 18th. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen. For your next listen, make sure you check out our other shows. Kenton Gibbs and Grayson Boone do an awesome job on Locked On Wolfpack, talking all things NC State. I cover all things Miami on Locked On Canes. Miami's matchup, number 5 Miami against number 18 South Florida, is one we'll be talking about before this episode is over. All right, so the Big Ten is having conversations, Kenton, about their next television deal. And according to Brandon Marcello of CBS Sports, discussions of unequal revenue sharing, similar to the ACC's model, are gaining traction among the major brands at other conferences. And Kenton, didn't we say it, several months ago, when the ACC, who had already introduced the Success Initiative, you win more games, you get into the college football playoff, you earn extra revenue. And then, as part of the settlement with Florida State and Clemson, they also added the Brand Initiative, which means you get higher TV ratings, you make us more money on our TV deal, we're going to give you a bigger piece of the pie. And didn't we say it back then? This is going to set a precedent, whether you like it or not, and I don't mind it. I'll be honest. I don't think this is a bad thing. This is America. I think we're capitalists the last time I checked, because I look at it from like a, from an ACC point of view. Clemson, Florida State, Miami can say, wait, why should we make the same revenue split as Wake Forest, right? Whereas in the Big Ten now, Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, who are pulling in big time money for that conference, should say, wait, you're telling me Purdue and Northwestern, they're making the same revenue split as us? It was only a matter of time. It is only a matter of time before every major conference is doing this.
The ACC is pioneers in this the same way that the first state to start charging for school lunches is a pioneer. Obviously, you don't want to be known as like, we're the ones that got this started, but somebody was going to be the first. And it just so happened to be that our big dogs were unhappy with how much they were making. So every single, penny in the crack of the crevice of the couch that we could find, we were going to put into getting those guys more money. And sometimes there's only one pie. There's only one pie, okay? And, I'm the youngest of four. So in my family and in my household, the way that the things were cut up, it was like, hey, if you get there last or if you don't finish your food fast enough, seconds may not be available there for you. And that's kind of what we are seeing here, in that whenever one team's cut gets bigger, somebody else's has to get smaller. And Donno, you and I were right. We all saw this coming because we all knew how long were Michigan and Ohio State and Oregon and those types of universities going to say, why, yes, you can give us the exact same cut that you give Washington. I think we'd enjoy that very much. Why, yes, you can give us the exact same cut as you give Rutgers. Why wouldn't we want the same cut as Rutgers? It was only going to be but so long before that changed, and it's inevitably here. We are going to see this in very likely every conference from now on. College sports are becoming more professionalized than they have ever been. The reality is, for years, it was only the administrators and the coaches were getting their money. For decades, actually, not for years, for decades, it was administrators, coaches, they're the only ones getting their money. Now that the players are getting their money, now they realize, okay, this is a money game. We got to treat it like a money game.
Yeah. For
better or for worse for certain things. We talk about the fact that certain programs are going to get cut altogether because they don't have the funding. Well, in the money game, do you make the money to make it worthwhile? If not, you get cut.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. And I wonder, at some point, probably around 2030, 2031, when these big TV deals are coming up, or in the ACC's case, you kind of have an option at that point with the buyouts being so low. I wonder if maybe some of the lower tier Big Ten teams actually look to get out and go to a different conference where maybe they feel like they might be able to earn a bigger revenue split somewhere else. So we could have sweeping conference realignment where I don't know, in 5 years, we might be looking at Rutgers being in the ACC or West Virginia, which I would welcome because I'm a Big East guy from the old days. But I don't know. I think things could get weird in a few years.
Oh, don't tell Drake Toll. Don't tell Drake Toll that we're coming. We're coming for West Virginia. The Backyard Brawl will live on. But in all seriousness, I think that the problem with them leaving is the same problem that I proposed with the Boston College or Wake Forest leaving the ACC. Sure, and Indiana could say, I'm going to go elsewhere. Okay, great. Good for you. Where? Where are you going to go to make an equivalent amount of money that you were making in the Big Ten? Even when you factor in that you're taking a lesser share, you're taking a lesser share of a bigger pie. Even if you say, hey, Rutgers, you're getting a very uneven split compared to schools right below you in terms of Penn State and company. Yeah, sure. And what about it? Is that uneven split where you're making less still more than what Old Dominion makes? Okay, then I don't think you want to go to Old Dominion's conference, do you? It's going to end up working that way. And although we are going to see more realignment, I don't think we're done yet. I do not foresee teams leaving on their own. What I could see as a possibility, Donno, and I'm going to tell you right now, I think the conferences will be kind enough to where they don't publicly announce this. I think some of those big conferences are going to shed some of those lower brands.
Yeah.
I think that's a very strong possibility of them looking up and saying, now, wait a damn minute, Vanderbilt, you ain't good at nothing but baseball. What? Baseball ain't never made us a drop of money. Go on somewhere. Go on. We don't care about none of that. We don't, that ain't none of our business. Okay? There's a very strong chance that the Big Ten looks around and says, hold on. Purdue, you are good at anything but basketball. Get out of here. Scram. Go and get from around here. And at that point, what would those lower brands do?
Yeah. Yeah, because you think about it, everybody keeps linking all these new teams to the Big Ten, like they're going to add like 4 or 5 teams. I mean, if you're adding 4 or 5 teams, you're probably letting some teams go at the bottom, right?
And think about it this way: even if the deal is bigger, if you add 4 or 5 teams, the cuts you just did more cuts.
Everybody's
to the
cut
same
gets
pie.
smaller. So if anything, you're going to have like the board of trustees from Penn State and Ohio State. They're going to be like, hey, you think we can trim some of the fat here so that we can keep this pie a little, keep fewer slices of this very large pie that we have? Well, okay, so speaking of teams we'd like to steal from Drake Toll in the Big 12, West Virginia is going head-to-head with the Pitt Panthers. Kenton, the Backyard Brawl dates back to 1895, one of the oldest rivalries in college football. The game is going to be in Morgantown, 3:30 p.m. on Saturday, but I can understand why the Pitt Panthers, and hopefully they win, are favored by 6.5 points, basically a touchdown. West Virginia has lost their star running back, Jaheim White, for the season. They've also lost wide receiver Jaden Bray. From where I sit, Kenton, no Jaheim White, no party for the Mountaineers. I think Pitt's going to go in there and pick up a W.
Oh, absolutely. When you talked about teams that you consider sleepers, I thought that you were about to mention Pitt, because really and truly, without an Eli Holstein injury derailing that team last year, and granted, he did come back and they still didn't look great with him down the stretch. Without that injury, that was a team that was undefeated and rolling. That was a team that looked phenomenal, and Eli Holstein has pretty much picked up where he left off. I mean, I have not seen a drop-off in play that I would say, oh, man, he and Desmond Reed and company are just struggling to do anything offensively. I would not be shocked if Pitt were to put the beats on West Virginia in this one. These two teams, this is my type of rivalry, okay? This is my type. Too many folks call themselves rivals and they like each other and they're friends and everything's fine and we're nice and we're cordial. These two teams hate each other. Pittsburgh has a very interesting thing called Heinz Memorial Chapel on their campus. It is one of the landmarks of their campus. A West Virginia fan edited something happening to that chapel that I'm not going to talk about on air. Just know, I gotta
find this later.
It's on TikTok, and a lot of people are very mad about it. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my type of rivalry. The type of rivalry that inspires the type of hatred that's like, I don't like you at all. I will go to inhumane levels of hate.
Well, like, what was it, like 15 years ago? I can't remember. Was it Auburn's tree that got poisoned by Alabama fans? Like, they poisoned, like, a historic tree. And I'm like, if this, you took it a little too far. You can't be poisoning trees.
Hey, listen, Donno, call me crazy. And please, hear me out. David Locke, do not fire me for this. I am not advocating for anybody to do these types of things. I am not advocating for that. Everybody, be safe, keep it within the lines. Don't get fired from your job. Don't end up in jail behind the rivalry. If you had to ask me, Kenton, which rivalry would you rather have? One where people go too far or one where nobody ever goes far enough? Give me the too far. All right. Give me the too far.
I hear you.
You know what I mean? I need me a little bit of that, something might go down in the parking lot if this game go the wrong way. I'm joking. I'm joking. Again, I'm an advocate of nonviolence. I know fan is short for fanatic, so I don't want anybody to hear this and say, I've got to beat up a West Virginia fan to make Kenton proud. You don't have to do that. You do not have to do that.
We'll have like a spirited arm wrestling match, like just
There
for
you
the
go.
sake of sport. We'll keep it civil.
Cut a promo on him. Go to,
Yeah.
brother. I'm gonna tell you, no pukesters in Pittsburgh. We don't have any of that going on over here. That's the type of stuff I want to see. I want to see you
Beautiful.
elbow a granny that's wearing a West Virginia outfit. Granted, a granny who is a willing participant. Okay, not some random grandmother that's out on the streets. Again joking. I want everything to be lighthearted here, but I do like a very heated rivalry.
All right. Well, we're elbowing grannies. I don't know how we got here, but we're gonna find a way back and talk about some more of these big games. To all the grannies out there, we're so sorry. We got Georgia Tech hosting Clemson this week. We got Miami hosting what they're now calling America's Team, USF. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. And you can get action on all these games at FanDuel. College is in full swing. The NFL is back. FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with this can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love FanDuel because it fits however I feel like betting. Player props, which I love, building a same-game parlay, even jumping in for live betting as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Folks, we're also brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Guys, I'm telling you, if somebody like me could use this, because I'm not great with spreadsheets, Monarch takes all of that nonsense out of it. They've given me so many great insights. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LockedOnCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LockedOnCollege. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen. All right, so Kenton, I'm really trying to talk myself into Georgia Tech pulling off the upset at home against Clemson, and they're not even considering this much of an upset anymore. So earlier this week, you talk about lines moving. I'm pretty sure when we did our show on Monday afternoon that Clemson was like a 9.5-point favorite. That number is down to 3.5. Clemson is favored in Atlanta, 3.5 against Georgia Tech, which means a ton of money has been coming in on Georgia Tech. Like, it takes a lot of money for a 5 or 6 point swing. So do we go with the sharps here? Because the money seems to be coming in on the Yellow Jackets, who've looked pretty good. Clemson's looked anything but so far. So does Clemson wake up this week, or does Georgia Tech get a big win at home?
This is Clemson's last stand. And I mean that very literally. If they do not show up in this game, they're cooked for the season. It's over. It's over. Here's the problem. I think they're going to try to wake up against a team that's more physical than they're prepared for. This is a game where I've got Georgia Tech pulling off the upset because of how they run the ball, because of how physical they are up front, and because of the fact that Clemson's best player by a mile this year has been Peter Woods. He's a defensive tackle. You cannot play a defensive tackle 50 snaps a game. You cannot. Our bodies and what we do in that inside, you can't do it 50 plays a game. So with that in mind, I've got I've got Georgia Tech pulling off a very close upset of Clemson here.
I feel like every time I start to doubt Dabo and I start to doubt his team, that's usually when they turn things around. I just have this weird feeling. I mean, you made some sound points, Kenton, but I just have this weird feeling that first half against what was it, Troy, was the wake up call that Clemson needed. I think that lit up a fire. I think Dabo is really good at the between the weeks stuff in terms of motivation. While I have reservations about Clemson because, like you said, Georgia Tech has been really physical, and like we've seen, you talk about physicality, the way Florida State completely outmuscled and bullied Alabama week 1. Like that was alarming, right? Miami winning the trench battles against a really tough Notre Dame team. You saw what physicality has done for both of those two teams at the top of the ACC. Clemson has not looked physical yet. I still think that some of their perimeter talent and Cade Klubnik, I just don't expect him to look as suspect as he's looked these first 2 games. I just have this feeling that Clemson pulls out a close one. And a lot of it, because you made so many sound points, but a lot of my thinking is I think we all know Clemson is capable of more. And so maybe I'm just expecting that to happen once we start to doubt Dabo, because that tends to be how this goes every single year.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't be
moving on
surprised
to
at all.
Yeah, go ahead.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if Clemson did finally get their act together and play one of their best games of the year in this one. Because, like I said, this is their last stand. And Dabo knows how to get his team up for that. I just have a feeling they're going to sleepwalk into this thing, and this ain't the type of team you can give up that 16-0 lead and just assume we're going to get our 17 back. It ain't going to work like that.
So, when we move on to Miami, number 5 is hosting South Florida. South Florida comes in at number 18. They've just become this Cinderella story. They beat 25th ranked Boise State opening week. They beat a top 15 Florida team in the Swamp last week. But the more I examine, Kenton, I went back and watched most of their game against Florida. I can understand why they're like starting GoFundMe's again to buy out Billy Napier, because he and his players committing penalties late in the game had probably more to do with Florida losing that game than anything South Florida did. And here's another stat that and listen, this is not to say Miami isn't also capable of self-sabotage. I don't think that's going to happen this week, because I think this team is really focused and very physical. And I think Miami's going to have advantages there. But I heard this stat from the Pro Football Focus college YouTube show, and this was pretty alarming. So South Florida, Kenton, in their game against Florida, where they did win 18-16, big upset for them, they only pressured, and not sacked, pressured DJ Lagway 3 times the entire game. And none of those pressures came from defensive linemen. It all came from blitzers. So that, again, I think outlines how poor of a game Lagway had and how poor of a choice Billy Napier had from going away from the running game way too much when Lagway didn't have his fastball. So I just find it hard to believe, Kenton, that a defense that only pressured Lagway 3 times, and Florida's offensive line is good. I think Miami's is even better. If you can't generate pressure on Carson Beck, and if you can't, slow down Miami's running game, I think Miami should win this game. I don't know if they win it by 18 or more points. The spread is 17.5, but I think Miami's going to win this game. Miami
wins and they cover. And let me tell you why. A Chrysler 300C looks like a Phantom until a Phantom pulls up. This team looks like a contender. They look phenomenal. They look like they could be the best team in the state of Florida until a legitimate contender for best team in the state of Florida pulls up, until a legitimate contender for playoffs, for national championship pulls up. With all due respect to USF, love me some Byron Brown, phenomenal young man, phenomenal player. The problems with USF are too glaring. And you can cover over them with the Ashton Gentile Boise State team. You can cover over them. You can cover over them against a Florida team that, like you said, they're raising money again to get rid of their coach. This isn't the first time that they've raised money to get rid of their coach in Gainesville.
They already had the account was already open. Now they're just putting money in it again.
They're doing the thing. This isn't the first time. I could understand if it was like, hey, Billy Napier is a staple there. He's a legend there. He's won big games and you beat him. Billy Napier ain't pissed a drop in Gainesville. Okay, he ain't done nothing special in Gainesville. So this is a moment where USF season is not over. I'm not saying that they're done and that they're not real. And no. I'm not saying none of that. I'm not saying they're not a real contender or that they couldn't be a real contender later in the season. But right now they have too many holes that were covered up by playing a team that was directly on their level and a team that Billy Napier, you don't got it. Go back to the group of 5 or group of 6. Go back. That's where you excelled. That's where things worked out for you. You don't got it at this level. And kind of work out there because, again, Golish is doing fantastic things. Byron Brown doing fantastic things. That team is winning on the line of scrimmage offensively. Defensively, they haven't. Defensively, they just haven't. You talk about the pressure rate. Look at what Florida did when they ran the ball early. They were having success, which confused me as to why Billy Napier was like, nah, we got to put DJ on display. There's got to be a numbers game for DJ. You're not good enough to have numbers games for your guys. You're good enough to have whatever the hell we got to do to win this ball game. That's what we're going to do. Okay? Yeah. But I think that Miami gets a handle. They win handily here. I think that this is a team. Like the advantages on the line of scrimmage are so massive. I don't think they'll be able to keep up.
And if they don't, like if Miami doesn't handle it, then I will be a full believer in USF. And not expecting it to play out that way though. Well, huge shout out.
Will you wear Bulls gear on air if they win? Will you?
I mean, I'm not going to make that bet with you. It's not like you went to you. Like, what do I have to gain? Why would I make that wager with an NC State fan? Maybe a USF fan wants to talk me into it. Maybe.
I'm just asking. I'm just asking. You seem real confident there, Donno. But no, I'm more confident than you are because I think Miami covers this fairly handily.
Yeah, well, huge shout out to the everydayers. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On ACC on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your pods. And we'll talk to you next time. We'll have the squad coming up tomorrow, among other things. We'll talk to you then on another episode of Locked On ACC. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.